Wowee, it's news. It's been about a week since the 2018 midterm elections, and after weeks of reports of voter suppression and disenfranchisement and wondering what color the wave will be, it happened. And some results are still being counted, while some are, well, Florida's doing its thing again. So we'll see. But either way, news-wise, the wave was the color of the Democrats gaining a still growing majority in the House, at least 7 flipped governorships, and a moderately progressive Democrat closing the gap in Texas, while Ted Cruz got 200,000 fewer votes than he did in 2012, even though 600,000 more people voted in 2018. Ted? Anyway, the midterm results mean a few things. One being that after controlling all 3 branches of government for 2 years and complaining about it the entire time, President Donald Trump finds himself with a check and balance TMCR on his presidency, something I'm sure he'll take very well. So the Democrats have a little more power, and I'm not one to editorialize, but I will say that it's good that the new chair of the House Science Committee is a former nurse who believes in climate change, instead of the current chair, this former Breitbart contributor who doesn't, and who's taken hundreds of thousands of dollars from fossil fuel companies. That's good. A little hot take for you. Hot because of the melting planet. But anyway, the Democrats took the House, and thus the power goeth to the person leader, the king congressperson, the Speaker of the House. That's it. Thank you for helping, words I already wrote. Now, it's assumed that the next Speaker of the House will be current Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, who, post-victory, looks forward to the, quote, bipartisan marketplace of ideas. But, counterpoint, nope. And also, why? Do you think they'll help? Republicans have been historically obstructionist to the point of having last-minute votes in the dead of night and writing laws behind closed doors and passing laws that haven't been written yet. But what else you got? Oh, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, the sure, go ahead to Mitch McConnell's I want to confirm a bunch of judges without you there. Well, Chuck said, in regards to the president forcing his attorney general to resign and appointing someone who the Senate hasn't confirmed and who has said that the Mueller investigation should end, the Trump Tower meeting was definitely fine, and what should really be done is the budget for the investigation should be cut so it piddles out, something he would be able to do. Anyway, in regards to that, Chuck Schumer said that he hopes, if there is a constitutional crisis, that our Republican colleagues would join us in thwarting the president from creating that crisis. And for some reason, he didn't add, but I doubt they will, as they've shown nothing but capitulation to the president time and time again. But to be fair to them, they've only done it at every opportunity. He's already violating the Constitution's emoluments clause, lest we all forget when Congress made Jimmy Carter sell his humble peanut farm. They've shown no interest in his tax returns. Not that they should, because every candidate of the past 40 years except for Ford has released their tax returns, but because for a year he promised he would many times. And then eventually he said, you know, those were lies. Now, because I'm never going to do it now. Adding that he released the most extensive financial review of anybody in the history of politics, which is false. And you don't learn much in a tax return, which is also false. We in Congress could benefit from more frequently describing out loud the president's guilty-seeming behavior, perhaps to his face sometimes. But my Republican colleagues don't care about any of this, or the growing number of kids in cages, or the attacks on the press, or his angry, untamed, dangerous, and potentially deadly rhetoric, or the constant lying. They have tolerated it, or let's be honest, collaborated with it for this long, so why would I, for more than 0 seconds, think that they would do anything when my Republican colleague and shiny new lawn ornament Lindsey, I hope you never get power Graham, said last year that if Trump fires Jeff Sessions, a thing that happened a year later, there would be hell to pay. But my Republican colleague hasn't said jack or so let's all help the president do more crimes by making it easier for him to fire the guy investigating him for crimes, I guess, for f***'s sake. Anyway, it's weird that Chuck Schumer didn't say that. But I can't stress enough how we at Cody's Shody like to be fair and balanced TMCR, a phrase we came up with ourselves based on how fair and balanced TMCR we are. So to be fair to Republicans, Jeff Flake has said that he'll be maybe considering forcing a vote for legislation that would protect Robert Mueller's investigation next week. And hey, good luck, Jeff. Hope you're not too broken up about it. And hey, maybe you can find a new principled Senate buddy in Mitt Romney, because here's some news. Senator Mitt Romney is a thing now, and in his victory speech, he noted that his victory was, quote, an affirmation that regardless of one's gender or ethnicity or sexual orientation or race or place of birth, that we are all equal. Yes, America, where anyone can be a senator, regardless of their rich or old or white or man. Mitt Romney. Now, one could argue that this is a dog whistle about the attack on white people and these crazy gender-obsessed liberals, but I think it's just a bit of an overcalculation on his part, because he's trying to sound like the opposite of Donald Trump, because he's going to primary Donald Trump in 2020. Talking about dignity, respect, and place of birth? Come on. Mitt, you hate the president. Remember your haunted dinner with him at David Lynch's house? You can do it, Mitt. Primary the president. It'll be awful for everybody, like 2020 will be for everybody, no matter what. Or tweet your concern or whatever. It's up to you. As Nancy Pelosi said after retaking the House of Representatives, they're not going to go after Republicans like they did to Democrats. Because when they go low, we go, okay. But of course, I get it. You don't want to spend all of your time, investigating your political opponents for their crimes. It's just weird that Nancy Pelosi forgot to add, and instead of going after Republicans, we're going to improve our democracy, which has fallen short of a full democracy for the second year in a row, according to the Economist Intelligence Institute, based on criteria like the electoral process and press freedom, as well as popular decline of confidence in democratic institutions. To be clear, this was happening before Donald Trump, who was merely aided by it, and he, rides that whatever colored wave to the bank, prison, himself to death while rage tweeting about a sports team that wants him, the president, to do something about state violence against minorities? Maybe. Who knows? But what was I saying? Oh yeah, this guy who became a president, so decided to be cruel and careless about it, benefited from a mass polarization and political gridlock and disillusionment in democracy. And now here we are, post-midterms 2018, after weeks of reports of voter suppression and disenfranchisement, and decades of gerrymandering, and finding unwrapped voting machines just lying around, and hours of waiting in line, and voter rolls being purged, and just sitting on pending registrations. And it's just like, we spend all this money on the military to do wars, to spread democracy, but we're terrible at helping people vote here. As of this taping, there are still contested elections, and there are apparently new votes being found in Florida. And they may not be counted due to incompetence. Alleged fraud, according to Rick Scott, who lied to voters about protecting pre-existing conditions, and who pleaded the fifth 75 times when he oversaw the largest Medicare fraud in history. But who knows what's true or what will happen? I'm not the future. And the president's mad that they don't ever find Republican votes. Except, yeah, they do. They find both. It's just there are more of one than the other. But whatever, man. Good try. Also, we must protect our democracy. Which, yeah, man, yes. Even Marco Rubio popped out his head to help get to the bottom of things in Florida, saw his shadow, and 6 more years of Donald Trump. Marco pointed out that people always talk about our crumbling democracy, but well, here we are with this additional election problem. So why are the people who cared about the things I ignored not talking about this? So, okay, we all seem to be on board with democracy is good. So maybe we should all reinforce hours during these tense times and abolish gerrymandering. Get money out of politics so having more money doesn't equal more influence in an alleged democracy. Make Election Day a national holiday. Have automatic registration or mandatory voting. Enfranchise people. Maybe abolish the Electoral College, considering the last 2 out of 3 presidents all got fewer votes than their opponents. And the Electoral College exists because, well, because slavery existed. And slave states could be counted as population even if they had fewer eligible white male voters, thus giving slave states more power. As the father of the Constitution, James Madison, said, the right of suffrage was much more diffusive, extensive, in the northern states than the southern states, and the latter could have no influence in the election on the score of Negroes. In other words, we can't do a popular vote because much of our state's population can't vote because they are slaves. So, founding father-wise, maybe some of their ideas sucked. Maybe they sucked dick. So, to my Republican and Democratic colleagues, as Speaker of the House of Representatives, I, Nancy Pelosi, don't want to just go after Republicans. I mean, sure, maybe it would be a good idea to censure Steve King for his white nationalist views and apparent Nazi sympathies. Like, maybe that's worth our time, to publicly and clearly make the case for that and force Republicans and the president to grapple with it, because that guy got reelected. And so I urge you, friends, all, to join together in a bipartisan marketplace of ideas, not to #resist the mean president on TV that everyone hates, but to strengthen the democracy that he hates. Come, friends, let's fix elections. Not fix them, but, like, make them no longer not so good. Thank you. I've been Nancy Pelosi. So it's just, it's weird that she forgot to say that. But through all of it, one transition's for sure, this one. And one thing's for sure, there is finally a check on the presidency. And the wave was blue. And let's see how President Goodmood is taking it.
Are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Yes, Donald got tuckered out by the midterms and said what a success they were and went to bed early, but he got too much sleep and was really cranky and nobody would change his completely full diaper. So he just stood there in it. And after Jim Acosta tried to ask a second question to the most diped up big boy in the world, well, then an intern, acting as the arm of the presidency, tried to grab the mic from the journalist, and there was an assault! Well, according to the government, there was an assault. According to this official video from the White House, ripped from a contributor of Infowars.com, there's actually a debate of whether or not the video is doctored. AP reports, an expert says it was. It might be the compression of how GIFs are formed on Twitter. But I would posit that while it does matter if the video was doctored, it also doesn't matter if the video wasn't doctored. Because they're still lying and trying to play this off as some sort of assault. And all you have to do is watch the video. Like the stupidest Zapruder film of all time. Which actually brings us to Zaprupid or Stupruder, whichever you prefer, they're both stupid. So here's Jim Acosta pointing at the president. Then a woman's arm gets in the way of that pointing. Oh wow, the clip's over already. Weird. So maybe they're not banning Acosta because of some violent assault, but rather because the president doesn't like being challenged or questioned. Maybe it's because he's a rude and terrible person and the enemy of the people. Oh wait, no, sorry, those were his words about a journalist. Wait, what else did he say about the journalist?
I don't think he's a smart person, but he's got a loud voice.
Okay. One more time, could we actually turn it up and slow it down?
I don't think he's a smart person, but he's got a loud voice.
Well, the White House has used this lie to ban a journalist, and the president has said he might ban more if they're rude. Not if they grab someone by the arm, which nobody did, except the president's former campaign manager? No, not the nationalist in the Edgar suit. No, not the foreign agent and convicted felon who turned political lobbying into what it is today. That one. The one who grabbed a journalist from the Edgar Suits website and bruised her arms. The one who feels compelled to speak up about the assault on the White House intern, not because he forgot what he did, or because he believes Acosta accosted, but because these are cruel, careless people, mocking everybody openly, and weaponizing something other people care about against people who care about it, for fun. But anyway, don't be rude or the president will ban you from First Amendment stuff. So let's see what the president thinks is rude. Well, when someone asked about all of the white nationalists who support him and how he called himself a nationalist, and maybe the words he chooses as president are important, and...
That's such a racist question.
Oh, I see. Well, racist doesn't necessarily mean rude. You know, there are lots of polite racists out there, probably. Good for them. So what else?
Do you want him to rein in Robert Mueller?
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question.
And it's weird that nobody spoke up, you know. Maybe some pushback on power via speaking truth to it. And I'm not talking about the civility brigades, how dare you, sir? Like when the president called the journalist asking a question rude, a terrible person, and the enemy of the people.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his butt
Well, I'm not a
like the
big
rest
fan of
us.
yours either, so...
I understand.
Because that just gives him an opportunity to keep being a huge ass. And then you're left there to be like, oh, okay, well, here's my question. But you could also point out, I implore you, good sir, I just defended my colleague without insulting you, but you decided to insult me for no reason, so maybe you're rude, a terrible person, and the enemy of the people, you ass. And maybe he'll kick you out, and you'll never get to be there for this. And people will see more and more who he is, the guy with authoritarian tendencies, who uses a synonym for Lügenpresse, and when challenged, takes away a journalist's microphone, bans him, then lies about the reason. And when this happens...
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question.
Somebody there, please, shout, why? Shout, how is that great question you clearly don't want to answer stupid? Respond to him. Respond in a way that people watching are responding as they watch. React like what just happened is disgusting and bizarre and funny in a sad, frightening, abnormal way, because it's all of those things. Say, dude, what? You're acting like a child with a broken diaper. Your diaper is full, Mr. President, dumped to the brim with McDonald's and fear. Because you either mean asking me if I'm trying to quash the Mueller investigation by appointing Matthew Whitaker, a man who clearly wants to do that, is a stupid question, because the answer is so obviously yes. Or you mean it's a stupid question because you don't want to answer it, because the answer is obviously yes, because after firing the original investigator for investigating your campaign in Russia, you went on TV and said that was the reason you did it. And you complained about your AG for a year because he recused himself. And you appointed somebody who has a very long and clear history of wanting it to go away. And you just said you don't know Matthew Whitaker, but a month ago you said you did know Matthew Whitaker. You're a liar. Lying. And when you say that's stupid and rude and racist and terrible and the enemy, you're talking about yourself. One more time for fun?
I don't think he's a smart person, but he's got a loud voice.
And speaking of f*** you, Mr. President, when asked about Michelle Obama's criticism of your long history of birtherism, you insulted the concept of writing books and then blamed her husband for depleting the military, but you also sent thousands of troops to the border for a political stunt, wanted a parade worth millions of dollars, and it also has nothing to do with anything. You birther? You frightened, angry birther. Patooey. So it's weird that a journalist didn't shout all of that and then show him a slowed down clip of something he said later on in that interview and then spit on him. And it's weird and perhaps alarming that more people didn't hear the president loud and clear when he said Lügenpresse for 2 years while calling the press the enemy of the people and then praising and supporting and laughing about the congressman who body slammed a reporter for asking him a question. That person, by the way, was reelected last week. All right, midterms. Here's some more news. Remember that white nationalist I mentioned who got reelected and who Congress should maybe address his white nationalism? Well, speaking of white nationalists, Tucker Carlson. Wait, this feels familiar. Speaking of white supremacy, Tucker Carlson. Okay, well, I've toned it down to white nationalist, so you're welcome, Tucker. I don't want to engage in inflammatory language or anything, because here's some more news I insinuated. Tucker Carlson's home was protested a few days ago. While he was on the air and his wife was home with their kids, they apparently shouted for him to leave town because they know where he lives. And I would say that this is perhaps not a good look and helps Tucker's cause. Not because Tucker Carlson shouldn't be protested. He should be. But maybe not his wife and kids at home while their shitty dad's at work, because Tucker Carlson is very good at what he does, being a fascist propagandist, and he'll use it for his own benefit. The incident is already being investigated as a hate crime. You know how a Swanson heir and one of America's most watched news people is a protected class? Trying to break into a black church, then going to a Kroger, running into a white guy saying whites don't kill whites, then killing 2 black strangers at the Kroger? Not a hate crime. A little shouty at the guy? Hate crime. And Tucker Carlson is already lying about it, successfully, for his own gain. He said people threw their bodies at the door when reports indicate they knocked a few times. He said they attacked the door with such veracity that it cracked. The millionaire's front door, despite that not being mentioned in the police report. Tucker also claimed that someone was caught on camera saying they were going to bring a pipe bomb to his house. Except the video shows them shouting, "Pipe bombs! Synagogue victims!" on account of the pipe bombs being sent to many people's homes on account of, perhaps, the president's constant targeting of specific people during his traveling dark carnival of amusing horrors. Here's Tucker Carlson laughing at the idea that the president talking about George Soros influenced anybody.
Donald Trump runs around.
No, because George Soros.
Don't laugh.
A plus, Tucker. The protesters also shouted synagogue victims because Tucker Carlson constantly stirs up fear about immigrants all the time on his show and the rest of his channel, specifically about the migrant caravan full of criminals funded by somebody. And a man shot up a synagogue because he thought George Soros was funding the migrant caravan. Oh, and speaking of, leading up to the election, the president and the stupid media wouldn't shut up about the dangerous migrant caravan thousands of miles away, to the point where the president sent the military for Operation Faithful Patriot to deal with it. So it's been a few days since the midterms. What does the president or frightened media have to say about it? Operation Faithful Patriot is now just called border support, and the president wants to ban people from requesting asylum. And nothing else. Cool. Anyway, Tucker Carlson, a man who blames Maxine Waters and the left for their violent rhetoric, and who blames Obama's rhetoric for dividing the nation, can't fathom that his or the current president's words have any effect on anybody. But Tucker Carlson is now a victim of fictional door violence. And now reasonable civil media figures can come out and say, this is abhorrent. I condemn this. This is not who we are, without telling the rest of the story. Stephen Colbert can say, this is bad. Don't feed the monsters, while smiling, laughing, and pointing with monsters. Jake Tapper and Brian Stelter condemn this dangerous incivility, but they don't seem to add any attempt at communicating context to their audience. Neither of them added anything about Tucker's lies and own incitement of violence, and how his website, The Daily Caller, has a history of doxing people themselves, or how Tucker Carlson lies about people on his show who end up getting death threats themselves, or how Tucker Carlson's The Daily Caller has a history of employing literal white supremacists, one of whom was Jason Kessler, who organized the Unite the Right rally, the rally with all the Nazis who ended up killing a woman. And Tucker Carlson has a history of disseminating the talking points and sentiments of white nationalists and neo-Nazis, some of whom were at the Unite the Right rally looking to kill people. And Tucker Carlson claims that he's just asking questions, and he actually cares about the little guy and important issues like automation. But even when he talks about automation, it always comes back to blaming immigrants somehow. And he always talks about the immediate negatives of immigration without mentioning the overwhelming long-term positives, even after they're explained to him. And Richard Spencer loves him, and white nationalists love him, and neo-Nazis love him because he's helping them, and 4chan loves the work he's doing in terms of pushing the civil war they all crave. And I could actually go on and really unpack who Tucker Carlson is and how somebody needs to explain to his face what he's doing in the unlikely case that he doesn't know. And I will do that eventually. But there's not much time left here, since everything I've talked about in this episode basically happened on the same day. So but people like Jake Tapper and Brian Stelter, who unfortunately are definitely not watching this, maybe you could tweet it at them or something, are failing us when they understandably condemn this type of action, but don't address how Tucker is misrepresenting it or explain who he is and what he does and how he weasels out of it.
Racist! Racist!
They're failing us. Jake Tapper and Brian Stelter, stop failing us in pinpointing and reporting on all of this stuff. If you condemn it, which, yeah, you also need to be seriously thinking about how you can effectively and meaningfully communicate to your audience that Tucker Carlson talks like a neo-Nazi regularly. Expose him, like Congress should expose Steve King. Get Tucker Carlson to tone it down, civilly, good sirs, if you don't like what protesters do. Because this is all they can do. Or maybe now he will tone it down after what happened. I mean, Richard Spencer cooled it after getting punched in the face while talking about Nazi stuff. And maybe scaring his kids while he's at work isn't the best move, but protesting him to his face and letting people know who he is and what he does is great. I don't know, f*** your door, Tucker. Let's check out one more time what you think about a bomb being sent to George Soros.
Donald Trump.
So I guess it's weird that Jake Tapper and Brian Stelter didn't add all of that to their tweets. Let's see what else. Here's some news. On the day after Democrats won back the House, the president reportedly intended to distract everybody by being an authoritarian troll to reporters. Then the president continued his quest to obstruct justice by forcing his attorney general to resign and appoint someone with intent to obstruct justice. Called everybody around him rude and stupid, and then in the evening time, another mass shooting occurred, this one at a country restaurant. And after misreporting spread that the shooter was Middle Eastern, like from the Caravan, it was confirmed that the shooter was a white man with a history of abusing women. And one of the people who died in the shooting was also at the deadliest mass shooting in US history and survived the previous year. And then later, a giant forest fire started in California, and people are dying and losing their homes. And the president didn't discuss the increasing number of fires and storms every year and how that might be related to climate change, which the new chair of the House Science Committee finally believes in. No, the president of a country on fire blamed the state and said no more federal funding for them, and it's weird he didn't add, but also 98% of these current fires are under the management of the federal government, and I'm the one who already cut funding to forest management. And maybe our military that I abuse doesn't need billions of more dollars to build tanks that we don't use. And maybe I should want to actually invest in rescue and disaster relief, since that'll keep being needed. And maybe we should stop using slave prison labor to fight wildfires. But anyway, everyone's stupid with a loud voice. I hate globalism, and I love having hundreds of military bases all over the another word for globe. But yeah, everything's everyone else's fault. Also, I lied for a year about not knowing about the illegal campaign hush money regarding my several affairs. I'm the respectful, not rude or terrible president. Let's all watch everything burn and threaten to make it worse. So yeah, here's some more news. Living metaphors. Well, that's that. Thanks for watching. Click the buttons on YouTube and check out our podcast, Even More News, and go to our Patreon, Some More News, if you want to support the show. And that's it.